Chapter 1. First time in a dropship, Lieutenant. Lieutenant Abigail Cage glanced over at the master sergeant running the mission, a burly Culleton who looked even more alien inside the shell of a Republic Marine battlesuit than he did outside of one. She wondered absently if the padded actuator in the flexible metal skin tagged at the abundance of hair the race was famous for before spitting out a quick response. "My tour is up at the end of this deployment, Sergeant. I'm willing to bet I have more drop experience than you and your platoon combined." She kept her eyes locked on the sergeant, knowing that her words were being translated to his language through the implant that was standard issue for any government employee who would be heading off word, and every soldier in the Republic. She waited for his large round eyes to narrow slightly through the tinted glass of the battle suit before pointedly looking away. My apologies, Lieutenant," Sergeant Colley said, clearly taken off guard by the ferocity of her reply. "I meant no decrees." Decrees? She hated when the translator fragged words as much as she hated being questioned on her drop experience. She suddenly felt like a bitch for biting at the sergeant. She had mistaken his intentions, more accustomed to being attached to battalions filled with overly aggressive bouncers than genuinely curious chiefs. Besides, the question itself wasn't totally out of bounds. Not all breakers had the good fortune to ride the vomit comet into the shit. She was too accustomed to soldiers assuming she was nothing more than a desk monkey just because she held a commissioned officer's rank, an advanced degree, and a specialty in the relatively passive fields of linguistics and computer science. Most non-HSOCs didn't understand that while breakers were commissioned officers, they were also the elastic in the Republic military's structural rigidity. Her training had been anything but typical, to the extent that she wasn't clear to divulge even half of what she had learned. "It's my fault, Sergeant," she replied. "I'm always a little defensive around a new crew." "It must be difficult being shuffled from one part of the universe to another," Coley replied. "I'm grateful to remain with my troop." He motioned to the platoon arranged on either side of the dropship behind them, 16 soldiers in nearly identical battle suits, holding fast to the walls of the craft to save them from getting too roughed up during the ingress. Coley was the largest of them, though Abby knew there were 2 more Culletons in the mix, along with the Rjects. "It can be," she said. "The upside is that I've seen a lot more words than most." She paused before she said, "people." There were a number of different species in the Republic, a network of nearly 500 planets, and people was generally translated to mean humans. "Individuals," she finished. "Have you been to Kullat?" Coley asked hopefully. "No, sir," Abby replied. "I've spent a lot more time on the fringe. That's where all the trouble seems to be these days." Sergeant Colley emitted a heavy, monotone sound that the translator informed her was laughter. "Trouble is everywhere, Lieutenant. The fringe is the worst of it. We have spent a lot of time out here ourselves. Enough that I would question your assertion that your experience is greater than ours." "Fair enough. I guess there's always enough trouble to go round, as long as the outwarders keep pushing our borders." "Indubitably." Abby winced at the word the software had chosen. She would have to tweak her implant to handle the query dialect better when they got back to the Nova. It wasn't wrong, but it was annoying. A loud tone interrupted the conversation, a signal to the platoon that they had reached the upper atmosphere of Graden and things were about to get a little bumpy. Abby reached back, locating the attachments to her suit on the inner wall of the dropship. Unlike the rest of the soldiers, she was wearing a soft suit, a less bulky, more agile version of the standard powered armor. Hers contained a special issue embedded system on a chip and extra tight packs to carry the tools of her trade. What it didn't have were magnetic connectors to stick her to the hull, and so she had to hook in manually. No sooner had she gotten the last hook strapped to the suit than the dropship began shaking, rapidly rising and falling as it slammed into the planet's turbulent atmosphere. Screw a little bumpy. She felt her arms strain against the tight material of the soft suit, and her stomach shift with each jostle. Intel said it was going to be rough, but this is insane, she said.
Affirmative, Collie agreed. The storm must be more intense than the nerds on the Nova predicted. I've been in worse.
So have I, Abby replied, not to be outdone, and she had. Graden was a stage 4 terraform, a planet with a breathable atmosphere and individuals already on the ground, despite the continued output of the huge generators that created the powerful storms as a side effect of their atmospheric processing. She had been to stage 2 before, 3 or 4 years earlier. The dropship had suffered extensive damage to the stabilizers and on the way in, and it was a miracle they had been able to climb back out. And that was with the Republic techs claiming the Spirit-class hoppers could handle stage 2. Assholes. She turned her head, watching the rest of the soldiers in the platoon. She knew how to identify different combat personalities by the way they reacted to a drop, though not because of the turbulence. While the shaking they were experiencing wasn't typical, it also shouldn't have been enough to unnerve any but the greenest cadet, and there were no green cadets in the 3rd Battalion. She was the closest in that regard, having only been transferred to the Nova 2 weeks prior. Most of the male and females in the group were silent and static, riding out the rough seas without a hint of discomfort. 2 had their eyes closed, and she shifted her eyes to manipulate her tactical command unit, marking the bouncers with a small tilde. Closed eyes usually meant they would be the first to break or freeze if things went bad. One of the soldiers, an average-sized grunt near the back, was smiling and looking a little too pleased with himself. Abby marked him with a carrot, giving him his suit a closer look so she would know how to find him. If she needed someone to do something crazy or stupid, he was the mark.
Tell me, Lieutenant,
Sergeant Colley said, nonplussed by the rocking.
Why did you volunteer for this job? Graden is a rock, and the colony here is composed of the worst kind of scum.
Allegedly, Abby said, smiling behind her helmet. Let's just say I believe individuals are innocent until proven guilty.
General Cat has been proven guilty,
Colley replied, his large eyes lowering in distaste.
Not only of aiding the outwards, but of misappropriation of funds, embezzlement, and treason.
The forensic evidence is questionable, Colley shrugged, not wanting to get into an argument.
I only know what I've read on the Milnet.
Of course you do. Abby looked away so that the sergeant wouldn't catch her rolling her eyes. The 3rd Battalion wasn't the military police, neither was she for that matter, but the support request in the Milnet had been for a breaker, and when she had seen the job was to raid a purported outworlder compound connected to the disgraced officer. Her personal curiosity had gotten the better of her. She had seen and read the same media reports as Collie, but she had also read the full forensic breakdowns moving through intelligence. In her mind, all of the data didn't quite line up, and if there was a chance to either prove her hunch or resolve her own doubts, she was going to take it. She had never quite been able to make up her mind that tenacity was a gift or a flaw. It had gotten her into HSOC training, and it had helped make her one of the top breakers in the Republic. But it had also cost her a husband and more than one friendship. She just hoped Gavin was taking good care of Hailey. Her daughter was the one and only reason she was giving up the military after a single tour, a situation that was especially rare among breakers. 6 years of intense training for only 6 years of active duty. She had made a mistake getting involved and getting pregnant, but it was her fault, not Hailey's. There was no reason she had to pay for her mother's indiscretion. This was her last shot to satisfy her need to know. She wasn't going to waste it. A new tone sounded in the rear of the dropship, signaling that they were closing in on the target. Sergeant Colley reached out and put a hand on her shoulder, dragging her from her head. Then he released himself from his tether, letting the battlesuit help him maintain balance as he made his way between the platoon to the back of the craft. "Check your squad channels," he said over the platoon line. 1-1, check. Abby didn't hear Sergeant Ray's squad check. She was attached to Colley's team. 1-9, check, she said, ensuring the others could hear her. The rest of the squad followed suit until they had all confirmed their links. "We went over this back on the Nova, but here's the reminder for the morons in our midst," Colley said. "Sergeant Ray's squad is going to provide support while we make our move against the compound. Our job is to get Lieutenant Gage to a terminal so she can pull whatever intel she deems important. In exchange, the lieutenant is going to get us into the compound in the first place. Do you copy?" "Aye, sir," they all responded, including Abby. Good. They waited another 10 seconds or so for a third tone to sound in the rear of the ship. "Form up!" Colley shouted over the platoon line. Both squads detached themselves from their magnetic connectors. It took Abby a few seconds more to get the soft suit unhooked, but she joined the ranks in plenty of time. "Sergeant," Captain Young, their pilot, said over the channel, "we've got incoming fire from the compound. We're going in hot. I repeat, we're going in hot." "Roger," Colley said. "You're all Marines. You all know what to do." "Hoorah!" the platoon replied. The dropship began to shake again, not from the turbulence now, but from evasive